Tilers want to win your tiling products for a year? Thanks to Beaumont Tiles and their partner Ardex, simply go in-store or jump on iCanWin.com.au.
Party people! Rooch, here he is. Rooch, here he is. Hey, Rooch, shaka laka, shaka laka, shaka laka, Rooch.
Michelangelo Rucci joins us each and every morning, and you will hear him and Kim Dillon from 3:30 this afternoon, driving you home the best in the business on your home of sport. Rooch, good morning, buddy. How's your weekend?
Good morning, Kane. Good morning, weatherman Andrew. What's this stuff falling out of the sky?
I've never heard of it. I've never felt it before, but I'm not sure it feels weird on my skin, Rooch. Can you enlighten us?
No, I've never seen it before. Anyway, big weekend it was, lads. Yes, apparently.
It was.
It's raining outside, Kane.
Good. My garden needs it. Hey, where do we want to start? Let's start with Port Adelaide, a pretty impressive performance and one that, reaffirms their premiership credentials, Rooch, against Carlton.
And it also shows there is a gap in class between what Port Adelaide is as a top four side and Carlton wanting to be a final eight side. The way in which Port Adelaide dictated the terms of that game, set the trap, had Carlton play into it. I've never seen a visiting team on the MCG dominate the corridor like Port Adelaide did and force the opposition wide. So that was an extraordinary game for Port. And with the hits they took, particularly to Houston, which we all admire the way Houston can move the ball from just on that centre line to anyone inside 50 without them having to sweat as the forward to actually take the ball. So they took some hits again, but they held up very, very well. So I would think Ken Inkley would be saying that's a major tick. And those who had doubts about what Port Adelaide was setting up in attack, particularly with Georgiadis and Marshall, probably having to sit back there and go, don't mind that combination because it looks okay.
That was me.
Oh, sorry, Kane.
Hey, Rooch,
I don't think you were alone.
In terms of that forward setup, are you looking at it from an optimistic view and saying that, look, they're still winning, they're doing well, and Charlie Dixon hasn't found form yet? Or are you a little bit concerned about Charlie's form?
I think it's got so many elements there, Andrew, where Dixon becomes a player who can work in so many different roles now rather than just be the bloke who has to be around the goal scare clunking everything that comes that way. Georgiadis is still raw, but he's got a rawness about him that makes him play instinctively to get the ball, and Marshall's a thinker. So they've got a bit of everything. So it's going to be hard for opposition teams to work out which one of the three you work on, because if you sit on one and then Charlie goes towards the wing, Georgiadis bobs up because he's got springs on his heels, and Marshall just works out where to twist and turn defences. We've looked at Marshall and said, does he get enough of the ball? Does he do enough? But I think he's actually probably the more dangerous one in terms of when things are really tight and difficult. He's going to bob up and turn a defence inside out and just turn things around. And then you've also got that group at ground level. And if it's not those three that are going to grab it, you've got Gray, Fantasia, Rosie, and more to come. Yeah, well, it's an interesting attack now. But Porter would be saying that is a very good weekend for them. Not so much so for Adelaide, unfortunately, on both fronts. That AFLW Grand Final pretty well leaves them with a lot to think about, particularly about the way in which they prepare a team and what sort of talent they need. They need to get some speed in that side. And then their AFL side, well, I think this is the point where we start getting a bit serious about some of the questions that need to be posed about list management again, what they're doing at selection. I'm not sure Matthew Nix can keep persisting with the Frampton Fogarty sort of theme around Taylor Walker as a key forward. They've got to rethink a lot of things now.
I think so. I think you're right, and the forward line's been the area that we've focused on a lot. We need to unleash Riley Philthorpe. We just have to, and I'm not too fussed about his performances at the lower level because they're going to be a weaker side in the SANFL. Is it going to be truly reflective of where he's at? Probably not. If he's training strongly and he's putting his hand up, then he's going to be a better AFL player than he is a SANFL player, particularly when, Frampton, he had the 2 preseason games. He's had 5 now at AFL level, and he's probably had 1 benchmark performance out of those 5 AFL games, which is probably not enough, and the selection integrity is there. The bigger question is Fogarty, who's out of contract and remains out of contract. We know that they've signed all the ones that they wanted to get signed by now. He may be better off looking for another opportunity, Darcy Fogarty, at the end of the year.
He doesn't look like a midfielder, and it's
Definitely
hard to
not a
see where he
midfielder.
works. No, he's not a midfielder, and he doesn't look right to be in that Adelaide attack. So, yeah, you might be right. It might be time for him to have his manager say, see if someone else thinks they can do better for me. But the key thing about that game yesterday at Adelaide Oval is you had two clubs who have been in interesting phases of a rebuild. Now, Fremantle started it earlier, and they've progressed further. For them to win on Adelaide Oval for the first time since 2015, and to do it in a way in which was pretty impressive in that final 10 minutes, tells you they're well ahead of Adelaide. And they've had so many injury concerns, Fremantle, that it's probably a time where Matthew Nick and his team need to sit down and say, what is our real objective for 2021? Because if there was this sort of hope after that big start that they could challenge for a spot in the 8, that's pretty well now been proven to be a dream that's too far away for them.
They have a crack, though, and if I was a Crows fan, just to see that, they certainly don't capitulate like they did at times last year, and there's enough there to want to go and watch them, which has been impressive. Hey, a couple of the other issues out of the weekend, just from a competition point of view, how strong are you on the look of Jordan De Goey grabbing the mobile phones of he and Jeremy Howe whilst the game was going on Friday night?
Yeah, it's a double-edged, that one. There is an integrity issue that's got to be held to long account on this one. That's just simple. That the issues that we've seen in international cricket tell us we can't be soft on this one. But then you got the compassionate side, whereby you've got players who are in a state and would have family members say what's happened, particularly if it's a serious injury. So there's got to be a system around this whereby, okay, they don't use their mobile phones, but there's got to be some way in which the club can get messages to the family members to break their need to hit on the mobile phone. So there's a bit of work to be done there. But in terms of people say, well, they're on their mobile phone, what's the big deal? Particularly when, you'll hear that most of them are probably ringing their girlfriends or their parents, is that when you've seen what's happened in international cricket with integrity issues there, you can't muck around with it.
Yeah, and then if that's the case, take the mobile phones away from the coaches as well. If it's one rule, it's one rule competition-wide.
Exactly.
And last one from me, Jacob Wiedering got concussed. He looked like he was out for 2 or 3 seconds, eyes shut, on the ground. Got up, doctors out there, and they let him take his kick, went off and then came back on. It didn't appear to be a great look with everything we know about concussion now.
No, it is the hardest part of sport, this whole concussion thing, but you can see how they worked through the process, having a look at the vision, took him off, did the test. If he's passed the test, it's pretty hard then for the doctors not to put him out on the field. But at some point, someone's got to make this is a hard one, Kane, because you talk to the doctors, they've got so many protocols they go through, and the players pass it. And this is where you worry then about those players who actually, fudge the test in the pre-season, to put a low score on themselves. So, I'm not questioning the doctors because those protocols are pretty tough, but maybe the system needs to have some other fail-safe areas about it, because it's just an area that's going to cause so many concerns for us later, in particular the players.
Good on you, Rooch. Look forward to tuning in this afternoon. Kimbo on the Rooch driving you home from 3:30.
Love listening to our selection of podcasts and latest sporting news? Then jump onto the SEN app and test drive our snackable sporting news podcast, SEN Sports Update, all thanks to Car Sales. Carsales.com.au, Australia's #1 car website.